Welcome to Fame Factor, the podcast, where we explore the journeys of artists who've shaped our cultural landscape. I'm your host, Sonia Lambert, and today we're diving deep into the remarkable story of Kendrick Lamar. From a reserved kid pedaling his bike through Compton to becoming one of the most influential voices in modern music, ultimately sitting across from a U.S. president in the Oval Office. This isn't just another celebrity success story. This is about how authenticity, spirituality, and raw talent can transcend the limitations that society places on young people from underserved communities. So grab your headphones, settle in, and let's unpack the extraordinary journey of Kendrick Lamar. Let's start where it all began. Compton, California in the 1990s. Picture this. A quiet, reserved young boy pedaling around on his bicycle, pockets full of now and later candies, shooting hoops and playing tackle football with his friends. This was Kendrick Lamar before the world knew his name. Now, here's something fascinating. Everyone who knew Kendrick from those early days tells the same story. They say he's always been the same humble, restrained individual we see today at award shows and in interviews. Even as fame transformed his external circumstances, his core remained unchanged. Like many young Black boys from economically challenged communities, Kendrick harbored dreams of professional sports. He developed quick footwork, impressive dribbling skills, and a dependable jump shot on the basketball court. But as he'd later admit through his music, he recognized that his skills weren't quite NBA caliber. It's a painful but mature realization that many young athletes face, the gap between neighborhood excellence and professional greatness. But here's where the story gets really interesting, and where we need to challenge some harmful narratives. There's this pervasive stereotype about places like Compton, that young Black and Latino children are somehow destined for street life, and that their only escape routes are through exceptional achievements in music or sports. It's a narrative that's not just limiting, it's dangerous. What this stereotype completely overlooks are the positive influences that exist in these communities. We're talking about mothers, fathers, activists, and local leaders who offer young people positive role models and alternatives every single day. These are the unsung heroes who don't make headlines, but who shape lives in profound ways. Now, to understand Kendrick's Compton, we need to understand how this neighborhood transformed over the decades. Here's something that might surprise you. Prior to World War II, Compton was predominantly white. Racial covenants actually restricted Black families from moving there. But everything changed after a landmark Supreme Court decision in 1948 that struck down those restrictive laws. By the early 1950s, Black families began purchasing properties, and predictably, white residents feared property devaluation and began leaving. The numbers tell the story. By 1960, the Black population had surged to 40%, and by the 1970s, it had climbed to 65%. This demographic shift coincided with rising unemployment and, subsequently, rising crime rates. The gang culture that would later define Compton's reputation began taking shape in 1971 when high school students Raymond Washington and Stanley Tookie Williams formed the Crips, uniting their gangs against rivals in South Los Angeles. The following year, the Bloods emerged as a counterforce, founded by Sylvester Scott and Vincent Owens on Peru Street. But here's what's crucial to understand, and this comes from people who lived through it. Compton wasn't always the war zone it's often portrayed as. Alonzo Williams, a DJ and nightclub owner who formed the world-class Wreckin' Crew, which included Dr. Dre before his rise in gangsta rap, remembers the 1970s differently. Williams recalls when Compton was still considered relatively safe, when you could traverse areas now deemed dangerous without much concern. Gangs existed, sure, but there was a street code. Gang members generally only engaged with each other, leaving non-affiliated residents alone. As Williams put it was cool. Compton was like any other city, man. We always had gangbangers. You went to the dances and they'd be there, but you'd walk right past them. This context is essential because it shows us that Kendrick's rise isn't just about individual talent. It's about resilience and potential thriving amidst adversity, in a community that, despite its challenges, still maintained pockets of normalcy and hope. Fast forward to July 31st, 2012, a date that would mark a transformative point in Kendrick's career. This was when he released Swimming Pools, Drank, as the lead single from his album Good Kid, MAAD City. And here's where Kendrick's artistic genius truly begins to shine. On the surface, Swimming Pools sounds like a party anthem. The catchy hook, the driving bass line, the relentless drum loop. At music festivals, particularly after hours of drinks and street food, this song absolutely explodes with party energy. People hear Pour Up, Drank, Headshot, Drank, and think celebration. But this is exactly what makes Kendrick brilliant. He's a master at hiding profound themes within accessible popular beats. He's not preaching, he's subtly educating. And Swimming Pools is perhaps the perfect example of this technique. Dig deeper into the lyrics, and you'll find Kendrick candidly confronting his family's struggles with alcoholism and how it influenced his own complex relationship with substance use. He paints vivid pictures of growing up around some people living their life in bottles and references his grandfather's golden flask. These aren't just random details, they're windows into the environment that shaped him. The song captures something deeply relatable: the social pressures of drinking culture, where not participating in excessive consumption might label you as timid or weak. Kendrick's younger self, seeking acceptance and wanting to fit in with the popular crowd, fell into this trap. It's a story millions of listeners can relate to, which is exactly why the song connected so powerfully. What's remarkable is how Kendrick balances universal appeal with personal truth. As he explained to Complex magazine, "I wanted to do something that's universal to everybody, but still true to myself." By choosing something as relatable as drinking, he drew from his upbringing in a home where you had to choose between casual drinking or becoming a problem drinker. "That's what that record is really about," he said. "Me experiencing that as a kid and making my own decisions." T-, the producer behind that infectious beat, made an interesting observation about how rare it is for mainstream music to address alcoholism seriously. He noted that most people initially mistake the song as celebrating drinking, not realizing it's actually exploring the darker side of alcohol culture. This approach, hiding serious commentary within accessible music, isn't entirely unique in hip-hop. Kanye West did something similar with Jesus Walks in 2004, disguising gospel themes within hip-hop beats before fully embracing Christian rap with his 2019 album Jesus is King. But Kendrick's execution felt particularly sophisticated and personal. The strategy worked brilliantly. Swimming Pools climbed to number 17 on the US Billboard Hot 100, catapulting Kendrick from underground rap to mainstream recognition almost overnight. But more importantly, it established his artistic identity. Someone who could make you dance while making you think, who could be both entertaining and enlightening. Now, let's dive into perhaps the most personal aspect of Kendrick's journey: his relationship with spirituality, and how it became his anchor during his darkest moments. Kendrick found himself at a crossroads where his creative process became all-consuming. He couldn't halt the flow of ideas, but with that creative intensity came mental health challenges that he's been remarkably open about. In those moments of despair, both personal and communal, his faith in Jesus provided comfort and escape from the darkness that gripped him and his community. Like many believers, Kendrick reached out to God in his most desperate moments, especially when facing life-threatening circumstances. This spiritual relationship echoes throughout his music. You can hear it in lines like "I am a sinner who's probably gonna sin again," from "Bitch Don't Kill My Vibe," and "If God got us, then we gon' be all right" from All Right. But here's where Kendrick's relationship with fame and spirituality gets complex and deeply human. As he became the focus of political commentators, despite never aspiring to be one himself, he started to withdraw. Despite his significant contributions and his ability to create music that uplifted an entire community, he felt a lack of reciprocal care and concern. Think about this for a moment. While he had prayed for numerous others, Kendrick felt that those prayers weren't being returned for his well-being. The endless cycle of interviews, tours, guest appearances, and feature requests became monotonous. Success, ironically, left him feeling abandoned. In a revealing 2015 Billboard interview, Kendrick spoke about his belief in the rapture and his conviction that humanity was living in the final days. "It's written," he said. "I could go on with biblical situations and things my grandma told me. This wasn't casual religious talk. This was someone grappling with existential questions on a cosmic scale." Here's something fascinating about Kendrick's spiritual foundation. His parents weren't notably religious, and he didn't grow up attending church regularly. Much of his understanding of Jesus and the Bible came from his grandmother's unique blend of realism and religious education. She helped shape him into the insightful young man who could see beyond surface-level spirituality. For a long time, Kendrick's music portrayed God as personal salvation, a soothing presence, a guiding force linking the earthly realm to the afterlife. This connection helped him maintain bonds with his deceased grandmother and friends, who had been victims of violence in Compton. God served as both protector and grounding force amid the world's chaos. But by his own admission, his earlier work sidestepped broader existential questions about suffering, particularly his own tribulations. He began wondering if his suffering was karmic payback for previous misdeeds committed before attaining self-awareness. The Bible verse Luke 12:48 became particularly meaningful to him. "For everyone to whom much is given, from him much will be required." This realization was transformative. Acknowledging his blessings, both personal and professional, Kendrick began to feel that perhaps it was time to honor God by sharing his message and giving back to those without his platform or fame. By late 2016, he was already conceptualizing what would become his most spiritually focused work. This project would directly confront global issues, removing some of the metaphorical layers that characterized earlier works like Good Kid, MAAD City, and To Pimp a Butterfly. For the first time, Kendrick was intent on addressing current realities head-on. As he told the New York Times T magazine, "We're in a time where we exclude one major component out of this whole thing called life, God. Nobody speaks on it because it's almost in conflict with what's going on in the world when you talk about it." This spiritual evolution wasn't just about personal growth. It was about using his platform to address what he saw as a crucial gap in contemporary discourse. December 2015 marked an extraordinary convergence of worlds for Kendrick Lamar. Picture this moment. President Barack Obama, while detailing his favorite songs and experiences of the year for People magazine, declared Kendrick's "How Much a Dollar Cost" as his favorite track of 2015. Let that sink in for a moment. The President of the United States, not just any president, but one known for his cultural awareness and intellectual depth, chose a Kendrick Lamar track as his Song of the Year. This wasn't just celebrity endorsement. This was validation from the highest office in the land. What makes this even more remarkable is the context. Obama's choice came after listening to Pimp a Butterfly, an album that offered unvarnished critiques of politicians and the societal divisions cleaving the country. The album didn't spare political figures, including Obama himself, yet the president discerned the artistry within and respected Kendrick's perspective, even when it cast a critical light on his own administration. Consider the boldness of this moment. In Hood Politics, Kendrick directly addressed President Obama, referencing the systemic challenges faced by marginalized communities. Instead of taking offense, Obama embraced the message. During a YouTube chat, he even picked Kendrick over Drake in a hypothetical rap battle, emphasizing Kendrick's exceptional lyricism and calling To Pimp a Butterfly the best album of the previous year. Now, let's rewind to understand what this meant to Kendrick personally. When Obama was first elected president in 2008, Kendrick was just 20 years old. living in Compton, dreaming of broader horizons, but very much an outsider to the corridors of power. Back then, it was challenging for Kendrick to reconcile the distant influence of a president with the immediate struggles and losses in his neighborhood. Obama wasn't a presence who could instantly resolve local gang conflicts or prevent personal tragedies like the shooting of Kendrick's uncle. The presidency felt abstract, disconnected from the daily realities of life in Compton. But seeing Obama not just as a political figure, but as a tangible person who appreciated his art, that rendered their connection profound and real. The Obama presidency carried a uniquely intimate impact, particularly for communities that had never seen themselves reflected in the White House. People constantly wondered if they might encounter the first family at local establishments or at events. To many, including Kendrick, President Obama and First Lady Michelle Obama transcended politics to become vibrant, charismatic figures woven into the fabric of American life. Then came January 2016, the month Kendrick visited the White House to meet Obama personally. Just months before, he had playfully inserted himself into a photoshopped image, standing energetically before the White House with money in hand. But this visit was genuinely momentous. This was Kendrick's chance to discuss vital topics like community development and urban challenges in places like Compton and Chicago with the president himself. The photographs from their meeting revealed a Kendrick who was deeply respectful and perhaps awestruck by Obama's presence, reconciling his previous imagination of meeting the president with reality. Kendrick later reflected on this encounter, remarking on the shared humanity that connects all individuals, regardless of status. When you're face to face with someone as remarkable and familiar as President Obama, in that moment, two men from humble beginnings sat in the Oval Office, contemplating the remarkable paths that had brought them to that point. For Kendrick, who was grappling with increasing pressure accompanying his success, the meeting served as a moment of profound affirmation. Having President Obama as a fan provided encouraging validation amid the constant hustle and drive for continual achievement. But perhaps, most poignantly, for Kendrick, becoming acquainted with the first Black president represented a cherished dream, one he deeply wished his grandmother, who had shaped his spiritual foundation, could have witnessed. This encounter underscored not just their individual achievements, but also the powerful resonance of their journeys with the broader American narrative of striving and success against the odds. So, we've traveled from the streets of 1990s Compton, where a quiet boy on a bicycle was absorbing the complexities of his community, both its struggles and its unsung heroes. We've seen how he transformed personal pain into universal art with swimming pools, creating music that could make you dance while forcing you to confront uncomfortable truths about addiction and social pressure. We've explored how his grandmother's spiritual teachings became his anchor during fame's most isolating moments, and how his faith evolved from personal comfort to a platform for addressing society's larger spiritual void. And we've witnessed the extraordinary moment when his artistic vision was validated by the President of the United States, a full-circle moment that connected his Compton roots to the highest echelons of American power. But do you know what ties all these things together? Authenticity. Yes, Kendrick's authenticity is the silent backbone of his success. In an industry that often rewards artifice and performance, Kendrick remained true to the reserved, thoughtful young man from Compton. He never tried to be anyone other than who he was. He just learned how to express that identity with increasing sophistication and power. Interested in learning more about Kendrick and his superpowers? Then download the Skoob app now and get access to the full story. Download the app from App Store and Play Store and celebrate the voice that helped a generation to understand themselves and the world around a little better.